Is Sweden one of the most unfriendly countries in the world? We're going to dive into that topic today. For those of you new, my name is Shalika Marker. I've lived in Sweden for the last 15 years, 10 years in England in my 20s, and I was brought up in beautiful, sunny Sri Lanka. Yes, I've lived in all three countries, and on my channel, I like to give my perspective on what life here in Sweden is like. Now, and I want to talk today on my channel about, are the Swedes really that unfriendly? Because it's been all over the internet. It's the sort of stereotypical thing that people talk about. And once something goes viral, everyone sort of hops on the train. And I just wanted to give my perspective. In order for us to start, I wanted to refer to my first video where I spoke about Swedes being like a coconut. So you've got this sort of analogy that you have a coconut culture and you've got the peach culture. I come from a peach culture. In Sri Lanka, the States, all of those places, Latin America, I think those countries are all of these sort of peach culture where the skin and the softer meat are so soft that you can penetrate right through to its core and really start developing strong friendships. They start using first name basis. They invite you to their home. They're very chatty. They speak to you in coffee shops. They speak to you out on the streets. And I think it's a really lovely atmosphere. But once you get to the core, to get right through the center of that peach, it's quite difficult. So a lot of it is charming and it's very nice. And living in Sri Lanka, it's really quite lovely. But you do also in those countries just have the sort of core friends that you have that you really are completely yourself with. And then you've got the Swedes, which is sort of like a coconut culture. Now, living in Sri Lanka, I know firsthand how difficult it is to crack through a coconut. You have to use a really heavy knife, a sort of machete, and the back of the knife, and you whack the coconut a couple of times, and then the coconut really cracks in half. And then you've got this sort of softer meat, and it's not that soft. It is still quite hard, and you've got to scrape it off to get to the softer meat that you see that you can buy in the shops, or all of the coconut milk that you buy in the shop. You have to grate the coconut and then you have to squeeze it with water. So it really is quite a lot of work, and I love to compare the Swedes to that. And because once you get there, everything is just hollow. So once you crack through those first two layers, you are in for life. And I've heard people say that a lot on YouTube, and I have to agree with that. But today I want to talk really about these sort of superficial social interactions here in Sweden, which I think what a lot of people talk about, and that's why Swedes come across as unfriendly. Now, I did some research for myself and for the channel. There are a couple of things that I want to draw attention to that people talk about, or it's on the internet, and some research as to why the Swedes might be so difficult to break into. And then stay tuned. I'm going to give you my perspective at the end and some of my real life experiences here. So I've got my paper here, so I'm going to take it up here. I've got a list of things. So I think, and I do agree with all of these. I've been reading through it. Respect for privacy and personal space. You will hear that a lot in Sweden. It's very common. They don't feel like they want to intrude. So they are very respectful of your private space. People do say hi on the streets. If you say hey to somebody, most people will say hey back. And I think a lot of the older people really love sort of a little interaction. Small talk avoidance. That's also quite common here in Sweden. People don't like to make small talk, especially in places like elevators and on the bus, in public places, even in a coffee shop. We don't just strike up a conversation with somebody. That's quite rare here in Sweden. Efficiency is in communication. Well, the Swedes are quite efficient. They like to keep everything short and concise. You don't really have a sort of convoluted conversation to get to a point, which is very true of most Swedes. Reserved nature. Swedes are reserved in nature. I could agree with that. I'm quite reserved as well, and we will talk about that in a minute. And they also talk about long-term friendships. While they may appear cold initially, many newcomers report that once a friendship is formed, it is incredibly deep and loyal, although forming these friendships can take time. So those are the reasons that I found on the internet. The one that I found and that I've been told by a lot of Swedes is that Sweden is so far up north, a lot of these Scandinavian countries, and Sweden is quite large compared to its population. I know this firsthand when I go up to the summer house in the north. Everybody is sort of, it's quite a distance to travel to the next village. So you're used to staying with your own family and your own sort of very small group of people. And I think that has just trickled down into the Swedish culture and their way of living. And that's why they can come across as unfriendly. Okay, so my experience here in Sweden is that Swedes are not unfriendly. I don't find them unfriendly at all. And the reason, one of the reasons could be that I myself am a little bit of an introvert. I am quite shy when I'm in a large group, although it may not come across as that. And I'm on YouTube and all of that. But I do have a sort of shy personality. I try to keep quiet initially before I meet anybody. But once you get to know me, I am an open book. A friend of mine in Sri Lanka will attest to this. I used to sing in a choir in Sri Lanka. And when I joined that, she said to me, she is one of my closest friends in Sri Lanka. She visits my mom all the time. We're very, very close. We are like family now. But she always said when she first met me, she thought I was cold, unfriendly, stuck up. And by the time she got to know me, she realized what a genuine friend I was going to be. So it really is a misconception. I do think that people who are shy and a little bit more reserved, they come across as unfriendly. And that's typically what the Swedes are in my book. Now, correct me if I'm wrong in the description box below. So I moved here 15 years ago and I got a job through through my cousin, my husband's cousin's wife. Now, she is also a nursery teacher like me. And I got a job in a school. Now, I didn't speak any Swedish. I wasn't a Swedish teacher. And I came in as a vicaria, which is a temp. They needed some people to help. I went in to work. And I have to say, I cannot even remember one person there being rude to me. They spoke in English. They were so shy or so scared of hurting my feelings. They would never correct my Swedish. I learned all of my Swedish on the job. It's still not perfect, but nobody dared to correct me so that I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. And in the end, I had to tell them all, you need to correct me, otherwise I'm not going to get any better at my Swedish. Now, my cousin's wife was not working at the school. She was working at a parallel school there. So I was all on my own. And I felt so welcome there. Jenny and Emma and Marlin and all of Sandra, all of them. It just brings tears to my eyes, actually, because they were so welcoming. They opened up their arms and they really engulfed me in a lot of love and a lot of respect. And even the parents, they were so helpful and so caring that was my first experience of Sweden. So when people say Swedish people are unfriendly, I find it really, really difficult because that was not my experience. So I just want to put it out there. Now, I'm not saying anybody else's experience is wrong. And there are a lot of people who have the same experience as you. But I personally, I felt so welcome and so warmly brought into their environment, including my boss, Annie, was a delight. They were such lovely people, and I can't speak of them highly enough. I think 3 months into being there, they took me on a boat cruise, all of the teachers, and we had sort of so much fun with them. And I really wanted to talk about that first experience. Now, moving from that, I moved to another work environment where I've been there now for the last 10 years. They were also, I started working with an older group of people. They were a little bit more reserved, but still very friendly, very welcoming, so warm and genuine that I really felt welcome right from the get go. And I was a foreigner. And even in Ekara, my first job, I was the only foreign teacher. Everybody else was Swedish. I think I remember myself and one of the little children being a foreigner. She was adopted from an African country. I can't remember where, but we were the only two sort of colored people. It was just so different, but I still felt so loved and welcomed there. In my new job as well, I have to say, I have met one of the most loving, caring, genuine human beings on this planet. And she happens to be a Swede. She looks after all of us. She is so genuine and so loving. She's so caring to so many people at work, at her friends, her family. And is she perfect? No, she's not. But I have to say that one of the nicest people, one of the warmest, the most friendly people I have ever met in my entire life is a Swede. Marlin, if you're watching, really difficult for me to talk about it because I get so emotional. It's so difficult for me to hear on the internet that people have such a hard time here in Sweden. And I feel so lucky and so blessed that my experience of making friends is just not everybody else's experience. I made two of my really closest friends here in SFE. Now they are not Swedish, one's South African and one's from Bosnia, but it is possible to create friendly groups here, especially if you start in SFE or you go to a club or you start working. I would really encourage somebody who's moving to Sweden to really start working. If you've got children and you're in schools, create a mother group, talk to the other mothers. They are so willing to talk, and they really, if you put in a little bit of effort, the Swedes will reciprocate. I find that that's the case here in Sweden. They won't come up to you initially, but they are definitely open and will reciprocate. Now, is that true of everybody? No, but is that true of everybody in every country? Absolutely not. I wanted to refer to also a subscriber. A subscriber wrote to me and he said that we were talking, I think it was on my convenience, 5 conveniences in Sweden. In the description, he wrote to me, he said that he was at the shop and Swish is just amazing because he went there to the cashier, checked everything out, realized he didn't have his card. He couldn't pay with Swish at the cashier, but he spoke to the girl and the Swedish cashier there. She said, I will pay for it and you can just Swish me the money. She was so willing to help, so lovely and so open and friendly that he had to comment using that as an example. Now, I also have an example when I went to ICA. I think customer service here in Sweden is really good. They're quite friendly. I went in there, and this was a few years ago when my son was having a dinosaur birthday party. And at the time, I think Jurassic Park, one of the movies, had come out. This is going back about, I think, 6-7 years ago. I went in and they'd had all of these Lego out, dinosaur Legos, and they had these sort of big cutouts of dinosaurs there. And I thought, wouldn't it be really cool to have these for the dinosaur party? So I found somebody who worked there. It was a young girl, I think. I asked her, what do you do with these things when you get rid of them? She said, we just throw them. I said, do you think I would be able to have them for my son's party? This was a couple of weeks before. And she said, yes, if they threw it before that, she would make sure that she got it for me. Now, I left the ICA Maxi, leaving my phone number there, not expecting anybody to call, because my experience in Sri Lanka is such that if you ask somebody, they do call, but not all the time. So I thought, if she calls, she calls. If she doesn't, she doesn't. And she did. 10 days later, she called. She remembered. She had packed everything. She had sorted all of it out. I didn't have to pay for anything. This was just above and beyond what she had to do. She just did it because she was just a nice, friendly person and wanted to do something nice for me. And she, I don't know, it was just a really pleasant experience. So I want to preface on my channel, and I know I use this word a lot every time I watch my videos back, but I do really want to drive home the point that I do not think Swedes are unfriendly. I think they are misunderstood. There are several stereotypes. I remember growing up, everybody thought the Swedes ran around naked because you thought that the Swedes were so open with sex. And while they're not prudish at all, that's not the case. There were also stereotypes that everybody in Sweden was blonde, beautiful, and tall. That's not the case. There's also stereotypes that Swedish people are cold and unfriendly. I don't think that's the case. We've covered that. So stereotypes can really be damaging to a culture and to people, because I think you need to come and you need to form your own opinions and have your own experiences. You might be like me, you might have my sort of experience, or you might be this sort of person that I am, a little bit more of an introvert. So the Swedish culture works for you. If you're a flamboyant, outgoing person who likes to have big parties and big social circles, then Sweden's probably not going to be the place for you. But it really depends on the kind of person you are and how you can settle into the country. And I think it's a unfair statement to say that Swedes are unfriendly. I know it is the title of my video. Obviously, I'm on YouTube. I'm trying to get as many YouTube views as possible. So I did do that for my title, but the Swedes are not unfriendly. I find them warm. I find them courteous. I find them genuine. I find them very, very helpful. I do find that once you've made long-lasting friendships with them, you are set for life. They really stand up for you, they stand by you, and they really give you so much support. So in conclusion, I wanted to talk a little bit about stereotypes. I wanted to find out really what the definition was and the benefits and harms of a stereotype. So I want to read this out just to conclude the video. While some of these stereotypes may have a kernel of truth to them, it is important to remember that they are often based on generalizations and assumptions. So before you jump to conclusions about someone based on their ethnicity or nationality, it's best to get to know them first. Stereotypes can cause people to make unfair judgments about others, and this ultimately leads to division, ignorance, and conflict. Now, I really loved that definition. Out of all of the ones that I saw, I found this most accurate. So for those of you moving to Sweden and heard it's very unfriendly, I want to preface that it's not everybody else's experience. Some people have that experience, some people don't. And like I said, it also depends on the kind of person you are. I know friends and family of mine where the wives love it here and the husbands want to go back, and vice versa. That's just because they've got different personalities, or they've got different ideas of what they want their social lives to be like. So everybody has to come and make their own judgment. And I'm here to say on my channel that I think the Swedes are very genuine, and I love living here in Sweden. I have absolutely no problems making friends and really enjoying the Swedish people's company. I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who's made me feel so welcome. If any of my colleagues are watching from Ekara, or any of my bosses, my boss Anna or my boss Annie, they have been the most genuine, wonderful bosses I have ever had to work with. So I really want to shout out to all of them, to Malin, who is a gem of a person, and all of my friends here in Sweden. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. I know I'm crying. I absolutely no idea why, but I get really emotional about these things. So I hope you can bear with me. Thank you so much for being here. And I will see you in my next video, when I'm going to be talking about 5 things that I hate in Sweden. Yes, 5 things I hate in Sweden. And so don't forget to join me for that video. It's going to be a fun video. I mean, I don't have any really bad things to say about Sweden and things that I really, really hate, but there are 5 things that I could do without here in Sweden. So don't forget to join me. Thank you so much for subscribing, and I'll see you next time.